Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a spin through the biggest stories in MMA. And on today's episode, Alex Pereira will not be heading back to the tire shop for employment. Merab Dvalishvili's title reign, it should be appreciated, folks. This guy's pretty special, in my opinion. Ilia Topuria will not be fighting the number one contender at lightweight in his next fight. We're going to discuss all this and a lot more. Hello, everyone. Gorgeous George here on the con. And look at the distinguished panel we have for you today. Goes from MMA Junkie Radio. He's here in Las Vegas. Danny Segura out in the 305, Southfla. Lots of stuff goes down in the world of MMA down there. And Mike Bond, the MMA Titan, he's in Las Vegas with us. He covered the event on Saturday. Don't forget, speaking of Mike Bond and MMA Junkie, both are nominated at the World MMA Awards. While you listen to the show, go to worldmmaawards.com and start filling out your votes. All right, Ghost is going to double up on the ones and twos, but before we get started, hit that like button. It would really make my day. All right, Junkie Squad, UFC 320 was epic or what? I felt like I witnessed a lot of greatness. Pereira reclaimed his title emphatically. Merab beasted on another great bantamweight, because I don't want to crap on Corey Sandhagen. I thought he fought great too. Jiri Prochazka had another memorable comeback. Zalal STFU'd everyone who critiqued his last fight, etc. Lots to react. Mike Bond, you were there with a great seat in the house, minus Zuckerberg's wandering around like a hobo in an alley, but hopefully he didn't block your viewing lanes. Tell us what you felt when you saw Alex Pereira reclaim that title.
Yeah, unbelievable, man. Quick fight, 80 seconds, his fastest MMA win. It's always a good result and a good night when you can fit a championship victory into the length of a reel, right? Or whatever that is, like under 90 seconds. So, UFC puts the full thing up there. Alex gets a shine, re-solidifies himself as one of the biggest stars in the sport, and now has a championship to go along with it. And he needed this one, man. Like, this was a really critical fight. If he had lost again to Ankalaev, it just leaves him in a tricky position. I don't think the intrigue in this heavyweight move he so clearly wants to do would really be there the way it is right now. We'll see where everything goes from him. But yeah, man, it does not happen very often where a fighter loses their title to a younger guy by decision, then comes back in an immediate rematch, no fights in between for either, and gets a stoppage to reclaim the belt. So Alex Pereira's MMA journey from day one has been unprecedented, and he's done things unlike anyone else. And this is another example for him.
Mike, and you said he needed this, obviously, going forward for what his aspirations are at heavyweight. Totally agree with you 100% there. But I think he also needed it in terms of legacy, historical content. Think about what everyone's saying now, man. Some people are talking about Mount Rushmore. Maybe that's too early to get him up there, but just how special he's been in the short amount of time we've had him. Like I say, that this, a lot of people were thinking because of his age, he might also be done.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. Like, the amount of MMA fights he's had, amount of UFC fights, and the amount of championship fights he's won in that stretch, like, what a rate he's had, between those two. We might never see anything like this again. So I'd like to say, like, I'm in awe of his performance, but we've been in awe of this guy, like, pretty much since day one in the UFC. So put no expectation boundaries on Alex Pereira. He's capable of everything. The fact that, even after he hurt Ankalaev, like, down walking, the way he got him onto his back and started unleashing those 12-6 elbows, like, you'd think that Alex Pereira should be running for the hills as soon as the fight touches the ground, whether he's on top or on bottom. But you just see that evolution, and he's dangerous everywhere now.
Yeah. All right, Danny Segura, let's go down to the 305. Let's get your reaction to Alex Pereira's win over Magomed Ankalaev.
I did not expect it whatsoever. I was very surprised by it. And it's kind of funny to say that you're surprised by Alex Pereira winning by knockout. But to be honest, I really did think that this was sort of going to be the beginning of the end. And I was pretty vocal about it throughout fight week. I just thought that, look, this is a fighter that has a good amount of mileage. He is 38 years old. I always felt like he was kind of competing in the UFC on borrowed time since the beginning, just because of his age. We know that prime doesn't really last all the way to 38, at least for most cases. So watching him fight Ankalaev the first time and have a lackluster performance and not really have that fire in him, I kind of did think that, we were starting to hit that age where, the fight starts leaving the fighter. But that clearly wasn't the case. Poatan is certainly not a spring chicken, but he still has a lot of life and fight left in him. So yeah, very surprised. And what I was thinking immediately after too was this couldn't have worked out better for the UFC. I think this was a home run for the UFC in terms of results and positive news for the business. So all in all, great night of fights, and shouts out to Poatan. You know, he's definitely not going back to the tire shop anytime soon.
Exactly. All right, goes.
Look, I'm with Danny. I kind of felt like this was going to be the beginning of the end, and boy, did he prove me wrong, prove Danny wrong, prove a lot of people wrong. The world is just better. The MMA landscape when Alex Pereira is winning is a lot more exciting. There's a lot more to talk about. But let's not forget the adjustments that he made for this fight. You know, going in, I think a lot of us felt he needed to be more aggressive in this fight. And you could see in his eyes as that fight was getting ready, he couldn't wait to get across the octagon and kind of push Ankalaev back, get him up against the cage, which is where he can thrive. He gave him no room to escape, and he hit him with those hammers, got him down. And I mean, just another great performance for Alex Pereira, a guy that, like Danny said, you know, his MMA career didn't start that long ago. You know, for him to be able to do all these types of things, I think the lead up to this fight was maybe more interesting than the fight, but that's nothing against him. It's how good he is. Ankalaev is such a tough opponent, such a good fighter who continuously improves from fight to fight. For him to be able to do that to a guy like that, man, that's pretty damn amazing and pretty special of a guy that we have. And like I said, going forward now, things are always so much more exciting when this dude's at the top.
All right, guys. Now here's where the discussion begins, and it can go in so many ways. Back to Mike Bond. All right, Mike. So look, we've all given him his flowers. He deserves it. The man came from middleweight and wants to finish as a heavyweight. Heavyweight just went through a lot in the last year or so. Now we have a clear, undisputed. He's going to defend in a few weeks, right? And then, of course, the GOAT, who, you know, the bulk of his career was at 205. He finished as a heavyweight. This White House cards out there. Whew, a lot to sort out. Dana doesn't look excited like he wants Pereira to move up. That's what Pereira wants, but Dana doesn't want that. So how do you think the puzzles begin to fit? What's next for Pereira? Mike Bond, you're up.
It's so tough what they're actually going to do here, because on one hand you have Dana White saying we're going to make this White House card, you know, the greatest thing we've ever done, and clearly you need the biggest names and super high profile fights if you want to back that. And John Jones versus Alex Pereira is one of those that you can make in terms of like the most high profile names in the company. But the question is, what kind of fight does that actually look like? I think Dana White, a lot of people see that as about as bad of a style matchup for Alex Pereira as you can get. We're all sitting here being like the sport is better when Alex Pereira is winning, all this stuff that we just said. So why do you want to put him in a fight that would be pretty high percentage chance of him losing, in my opinion? Of course, as we said, don't want to put expectations. Maybe he is the one who to defeat John Jones, and this is where the entire story has been leading. I don't feel that confident in that. So, and like, stay in your lane a little bit. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing the Carl Solberg fight. I could see another Yuri Prochazka fight. Like, we're all we'll get into all that stuff, but for him going up to heavyweight and either challenging for that belt against Tom Aspinall or fighting John Jones, like, I think those are both pretty rough nights for him. So if you're trying to maximize whatever this window of Alex Pereira left is as an asset, to me, that's continuing to fight at 205. If you want to really go to heavyweight, just so he said he can do it, like, there is other guys lower down in the rankings that you could do a fight around, but to me, it just feels like he's got to stay in this championship territory at 205 for now.
Mike, I'm going to come at you from left field. And if I'm using a baseball analogy, I'll congratulate your Blue Jays on the win over the Yankees. What if Gane wins? Then would you be enticed to push Pereira versus Gane?
Sure, I guess. I mean,
stylistically, you know, because I hear you.
Yeah,
Aspinall and Jones are a
little bit better for him, but again, like, I don't know what they're going to do if that scenario comes by. I could see it immediate rematch happening. I don't think we're going to get, Jones versus Gone too. So that seems pretty unlikely. So I don't know. I mean, I've yet to put myself in a world where Cyril Gone wins the undisputed UFC heavyweight championship. I can't really fathom it, right? Yeah. All due respect to him. We're a few weeks away. Maybe, things get crazy, but yeah, you're putting me in a hypothetical that I almost can't put in my shoes in.
So, Danny, should we just concentrate on Ulberg? They flew him out. He looked good in his last win. All respect to Prochaska. We'll get to him in just a sec. Hell of a comeback. But he's 0-2 against Poatan.
Yeah, I think that's the fight to make. I think it's an exciting one. And honestly, I think it's a good fight for Poatan stylistically. So I think there should be a lot of interest in his part to make that fight happen. It just seems, though, that he's focused on super fights. That's what he said in the post-fight press conference, which kind of signals to me, I don't know about you guys, but it signals to me that he's looking to wrap things up, right? Once you start talking about super fights, you want some big cash, some big checks, and you want some big fights, legacy fights, and then you wanna exit out. That's the way I kind of see it. Very different rhetoric compared to Merab Dvalishvili, who doesn't want to change divisions, wants to stay in his weight class and continue to defend the belt. Looks like we got him for a long time. So, yeah, this one's a weird one. I'd love to see him stick at 205 because honestly, he is 205. Without him, like, that division is just in complete shambles. Sure, maybe you can make Jiri versus Ulberg. That's a fun fight, but then who's the next challenger after that? There's not a ton going on. So I would love for Poatan to stick at 205. He is the face of that weight class. And to be honest, I'm not that thrilled about a heavyweight move. So I hope that's the case. But from everything that he's saying, it seems that, he wants completely the opposite. He wants to move up and kind of leave 205 behind.
Mm-hmm. All right. And Goes, what would be your say in all this? Again, we have Ulberg right there. And then I guess I'll stomach a third Prochaska fight. He did look great on Saturday, coming back to beat Roundtree. I didn't think he looked that great in the first 2 rounds, but he got the dub. Your thoughts on Poatan? He's great, man, and he's got options, but still, I don't know about a couple of those.
That's the beauty in him and his fight game and the lead up and all that. We don't really have to stomach too much. It's all a lot of fun. You're right. I probably don't want to see that fight again for a third time, but there's so many things underneath that we haven't discussed, things that are going on right now. The foot, not that he hasn't fought with a messed up foot before, but we don't know how long that's going to keep him out. Thoughts and prayers to John Jones and his family and what they're going through right now. Who knows where he's at in his headspace, and whether, even past that, the UFC hasn't been too warm to having him on a big card. So there's just so many different things. But I have to agree with my colleagues here. Like, I'm not a big fan. If you were to ask me what's one of the things about the sport that you don't like that's developed in the last few years, it's been the wanting of moving up to different divisions when there's still work to do in the division that you're in. Now, like Danny said, if this is something behind the scenes that Pereira is telling only the UFC or only his management that he only has a few left in him, then I understand why he would do that. And I get that he's probably earned the right to do that. But not everything is so interesting up there. Like you mentioned, if Cyril Gane were to win, to me, that's always been the situation that they would consider just because of the matchup. Let's be honest, Cyril Gane's probably not going to shoot on Pereira. And if he did, I think Pereira has improved enough to be able to fight that off. It would make something compelling. But then what do you do? After that, you're probably going to have to face a killer in Tom Aspinall or maybe John Jones. And, if you only have 2 fights left in you, then it makes sense. But if you want to keep going, I don't know that you want to see a guy like Alex Pereira get manhandled by either one of those two. It's nothing against Pereira. It's just how great the other two are.
And now the policy of the UFC is, champ, you leave your belt if you want to move up. And of course, we create, I guess, an opportunity for 2 fighters, but we also remove a top fighter from a division. Should he or she go up and lose, they're just floating out there with no belt at all. Mike, you asked, I believe it was you that asked Dana White about this, or Poatan, sorry, and Poatan said it was a secret, or he had some sort of a conversation with Dana White. Do you believe that?
He said that was to, I guess, what they said beyond that. Like, I asked if he would be willing to vacate that title, and he seemed to imply that he would have intentions of keeping it and trying to come back and defend it again. Yeah. So I really don't know what the plan is here. There's so many moving parts. Like, do you do? on one side, like, you know, the stat nerd in me is like, okay, like, can this guy actually be the first 3-division champion in UFC history? Like, should you give him that opportunity? Well, it's here and present. Sure, I could get on board with that. That to me is more compelling than a fight with John Jones, even though I'm sure that's a bigger bag for him if he did fight Jones, all that stuff. But the history element, like, that would be the most curious part of it for me. If it's just a non-title heavyweight fight with John Jones, like, how about John if he does come back? Like, hop in the gym. Let's get back down to 205, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that too. Mike, before 300 or 303, he broke toes and fought. In this one, I saw him in a booth talking to the media. I think he said broken foot, but do you think it's back to the toes, or do you have any clarity on what that injury is?
Not yet, but he did say, like, he identified exactly when it happened. I actually found, you know, the part of the fight. It was on the third kick, kind of landed on the outside of the leg. So he seemed to think it was, you know, the actual foot, not the toes. So we'll see. I'm no doctor, but he was definitely walking around in a boot after the fight, and he said he thought it was broken. So he's clearly got a lot of experience with this. So I'll take his gut feeling for now, but obviously fingers crossed it's not that serious.
Lots to discuss here, guys. So this is real quick. Just give me a name. If he stays at 205 and he wants to fight quick and he's available, Yuri or Ulberg? Danny.
Ulberg.
Goes.
Ulberg.
Mike.
Ulberg, you got to give it to the guy who has the longest winning streak in this division.
There you go. There you go. And what's next for Ankalaev? Who wants that one? Danny, you have a name for the unpopular fighter who got booed all week.
Yeah, this one's rough. I don't know. Maybe Khalil, but it looks like Khalil's going to be out for a while, given the type of fight that it was. Maybe Reyes as well, if he wants kind of like a bounce back. I don't know.
Any ideas, Mike?
Yeah, I think those work. It's going to depend on his timeline too. I know a lot of people are going to look at making excuses for his guy. That statement Ali Abdelaziz put out kind of implied that Ankalaev maybe had something going on into this fight. I don't know how serious that's going to be. Was he 40%? We don't know. But for him, well, it's going to depend on his timeline and where his health is at.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll get to Dvalishvili and Sandhagen in just a second. We have, you know, a chat room here, and if it's something that pops at you and you want to get it off your mind, a question, comment, go ahead and leave them out there. Right now, I'm a little bit in catch-up mode, so let me just give some quick shout-outs to Josh Madrano, listening from London, UK, Frozen Like Elsa, Joseph Boza's a beast. He's always in here, MMA events vlog, fresh melon juice, good stuff. All right, let's get to Dvalishvili versus Sandhagen. Man, guys, I hope you guys are appreciating the epic run this guy's on, because it's unlike anything I've ever seen. He's more ground-oriented, but he's taking his chances with the hands. He goes for the submission, if not the ground and pound. He's exciting. I wish he would catch on a little bit more with other people, but your reaction to Sandhagen, Danny Segura, you're up first.
Man,
sorry, Merab Dvalishvili beating Corey.
Yeah, Merab, to me, like, I had questions about whether or not he was the GOAT, and I kind of went back and forth between him and Dominic Cruz prior to UFC 320. But after watching this performance, I am generally convinced that, you know, he is one of the best talents we've seen at 135 pounds, and yeah, I was just in awe of what he was able to do. Just because you could tell that Corey Sandhagen did his homework, was doing everything right, and yet it still didn't matter. Like, you just can't get him off you. You just can't deal with this pressure. And yeah, my first thought was just like, man, who's gonna beat this guy? Like, we thought it was Umar. We thought he was the boogeyman. I still think he's the toughest fight there. But man, I think he's gonna be a big favorite entering every single fight, and the way he's looking, I can see him really taking this record of title defenses at 135 pounds and really setting the bar real high to a point where, you know, it'd probably be unreachable for a lot of people for quite some time.
Is there someone that can actually beat him? It's almost like you need a Shark Tank. Sandhagen, you get round one. Nurmi, you get round two. You know, O'Malley, you see what you can do in round three. This guy's fresh and ready to go, and he takes on all styles.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because a lot of the names that we want to throw at him are rematches, right? Guys who've already had a shot at him. I'm with Danny in the sense that I felt Corey did a good job. I thought at the end of round one, we saw a different look on Dvalishvili's face. Maybe not a concerned look, but you could tell he knew, all right, maybe tonight's not a night to be clowning around. And to his credit, he made adjustments. he did a little bit of everything in this fight. Like, he continues to improve. His striking got a little better, and his wrestling, the different ways he can take a fighter down and the positions that he can gain from them are pretty amazing. And I think a lot of credit does deserve to go to Merab, but at the same time, I think John Wood deserves a lot of credit. We see in sports throughout time the connection between a player and a coach, and what that can do when they're together for a long time. And these guys have been together for a while now, and they really, really click. So going forward, man, I don't know what it's going to take to stop this guy, but I think I'm finally at that moment where I can say, I pulled out the WEC glove last week. I can say goodbye to the Dominic Cruz talk. But honestly, the next discussion is, this guy's going to end up being one of the greatest of all time if he keeps on this trajectory.
He's smashing. Mike, you were there after round 1. What were you thinking? Did that thought creep in your head? Oh, shit, this may be the night?
No, I was pretty confident in Merab all the way here. Like, yeah, I mean, Corey Sandhagen is great. Like, of course, there's always the element of Merab could walk onto something and maybe that's how he gets put out. Like, I truly think to beat this guy, you do have to knock him out conscious or choke him out cold. Like, it's going to take a lot from that. I don't think you're winning a decision over this guy. Now has, I think, the most decision wins in UFC history, which I don't know if that's a good stat or a bad stat to have at this point, but a little bit more edge on that regard. I do think if there was going to be some criticism for Merab, I know he says like he wants to get all his energy out there. He wants to fight hard. Dude did barely look like he broke a sweat after 25 minutes. But if he can get a little more finishes in some of these fights, I think that's going to just level everything you guys set up in terms of his greatness, although like how he's looked at, all those sorts of things. But how can you be critical beyond that? I mean, you could rack back the tape from the show however many times where I said, like, I don't think any bantamweight champion is going to hold the belt for X amount of time because all these guys are just too freaking good in this division. Now he's suddenly making bantamweight look like a bad division or like it doesn't have anything for him. I never thought we were going to see that in this kind of life cycle of the weight class. So mad respect to Merab. He truly is a machine. And I do think the Umar fight remains the most challenging for him.
Ooh.
Broken hand, there's at least something there, but
no Petr Yan love?
I think Petr Yan will be next. I mean, obviously Umar has business to handle in a few weeks here in Abu Dhabi against Mario Bautista, who also could be an interesting challenge. We'll give him his respect. I don't know if that's a fight everyone's racing to the box office to watch, but Rob just doing what he's doing, just a very unique character. Like, the guy wins his fight, he's out at the club shadow boxing, he goes straight to like Aljamain Sterling's wedding. Like, he does not stop in any regard of his life. So yeah, enjoy the Merab time while you can, because I don't know if we're going to see another guy with just this combination of everything. 20 takedowns, ridiculous.
Yeah, you know what's unfortunate, Mike, too, is like when you look at the division, like we were talking about how good the division is, a lot of these guys could be champion. Not only that, they could probably reign for a while. Like, if you look at the history of this division, there are some quality fighters, but they're not going to have that chance because of this one guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, the most interesting fight would probably be him and Aljamain Sterling, actually, but I don't think we're ever going to get that one.
Yeah.
And speaking of featherweights, how often do we say, hey, man, you got business to attend to? Now I'm starting to think, my mind's wandering. I wonder how he would do at 145, which thankfully he's not. And he does have Petr Yan, the winner of Bautista and Nurmi, which if it's Bautista, it's a little easier because this guy fights so often. I don't want to say, well, he fought the same guy, within the same calendar year or whatever, meaning Nurmi, who did give him a great fight, by the way. But still, Bautista deserves respect. Let's see how that fight plays out. I'm just blown away. And Mike said it, I was going to bring that up. 20 takedowns, man. One shy of Habib, I think, has the record for takedowns. What is it, Mike, in a title fight, right? Or fights in general?
No, it's just Habib got 21 in a 3-round fight. So that's even crazy.
Who was that against? DDP?
Don't do this to me at this moment.
Probably
It's too early here on the West Coast, George. My mind's not clicking.
the guy from Killcliff, is it Abel Trujillo or something like that?
That is correct.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I remember that guy.
Yeah.
All
By
right.
the way, I don't want to sound like a hater, but I dislike that stat a lot. It's same when, like, for example, it kind of brings me back to when Anthony Joshua was bragging about becoming a 2-time heavyweight champion, but that means you lost the belt, right? Like, rather than have consecutive defenses. So like, yeah, like 20 takedowns, but that means also like Corey Sandhagen was able to get up, 20 times.
And a bunch of them were mat returns as well, where like, he just gets up to his feet and gets dragged back down. So yeah, I get it. It can be a flawed stat, but given what this guy has done, and the takedown ratio to UFC fight number is still pretty astounding.
Danny, who do you want next for Sandhagen?
Man, I always like that fight with Sean O'Malley. I think that'd be a fun one. I think it makes sense to do right now. It feels a little bit of a super fight. Both have really exciting styles, and it'd be kind of like it'd be a fun dynamic fight between two very good strikers, two very skilled strikers. Give me that 5 rounds in a fight night. I'm all for it.
Save it for the White House, maybe. That way, we're sure in America.
No. First quarter of 2026.
All right. Well, keep thinking of that White House card, because they're saying it's going to be so epic. You got to save some of them pieces too. I love frequency of great fighters fighting, but I realize this monster is being created in Washington, D.C.
Keep him away from a wrestler. Give him a striker, man. For his mental health. Imagine, what he's been through between Nurmagomedov and Dvalishvili. Like, I think that wrestling, man, that's been killing him.
Shout out to Lambert VD over in Facebook. You can listen via Facebook, by the way. Fresh Melon Juice, Future Sequence, Sky Vision, L Daddy goes. Yusuf Zalal, we see him at the UFC Fan Expo. He wants Emmett. Then we see Emmett. He goes, who? Maybe not that, but he wasn't too interested in it. He knows who he is now.
That pretty much was that. That was interesting. Yusuf Zalal got a big win. It was a flawless victory. I mean, I don't even think he threw a strike in the fight, and it was on a big stage, which is something that I think he needed. Who knows? Maybe those comments that Josh Emmett had, maybe that was the fuel that he needed. But this dude is on an incredible run, and I think I enjoy watching him. I think part of this victory is not just winning, but also somewhat erasing the running away that was being thrown out there a lot. I mean, he just went out there and handled his business. You can't ask for much more here.
Dude, Emmett's wrestled since high school, and the way he got him and put him down, it looked like a father putting down his newborn for a nap. It was, this guy's stronger than he needs on. Very, very impressive. But Mike, did it register at the arena? Are people now on the Zalal train? Because he's likable for sure.
I wouldn't say it registered in the arena the way it should have, because there was a little bit of confusion in the immediate aftermath because of the verbal tap, and like you didn't really know what happened or what was going on there. So, it would have hit a little better if we had got like a more, emphatic tap out in that sense. But once the dust settled and you saw this guy got the win and the nature of his victory, I think people were impressed. He's walking out of the cage and, dapping up Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green, who were sitting cage side and stuff. So he had a nice moment there. He needed this on a stage like this, and really impressive, man. You don't see many guys who wash out of the UFC on a losing skid, work their way back outside of the organization, then come and put together a run like this. So 5-0, he is legit, and I want to see him fight someone really good next at featherweight.
Yep, he got the finish. We got that taste out of our mouth from the Cater fight, Danny. But what's next for him? He's kind of getting a little out of hand there with, the belt, the making the motion of belt next. That ain't happening. But is there a fun fight out there that you like for Yusuf Zalal? Can I throw mine out there, by the way? Ortega, if he's hanging around, I'd love to see them grapple. But if not, I guess it'll have to be more relevant.
George, no more Brian Ortega featherweight fights.
Yeah,
no more. All right.
No, yeah. Look, I don't think he's out of line for doing the belt thing. He's undefeated since getting back to the UFC. What is he, like 5-0 in the promotion, and then like 8 or 9 fight winning streak with his wins outside of it. He went to the decision with Ilia Topuria, which that loss is looking quite good now. I think that he should be in a title eliminator bout. So I really like the idea that he put out there following the fight. We know that Volkanovski has a pending title fight, and we know that there's 2 solid candidates for that. It's either Lerone Murphy or Diego Lopez. I think it should be Lerone Murphy. He's undefeated, the win streak, crazy knockout against Aaron Pico, but also Diego Lopez looked fantastic in his last fight. So we'll see what ends up happening. So one of those guys will not be fighting for the title. Whoever that ends up being, I think Yusuf Zalal should fight that guy for a title eliminator. It's
gotta be Murphy, though, right? I love Lopez, but
I agree. No. Yeah. I 100% agree. But you know how the UFC works. They want They want exciting fights. They want big names. And Diego Lopez, right now, I think it's a more exciting product than Lerone Murphy. Also, availability. Diego Lopez is down to fight anytime. I 100% agree. Lerone Murphy should be next. Deserves to fight more. So Lopez versus Salal, sign me up.
Where does, as Joseph Bose asked, where does Movsar Evloev fit in the mix?
Well,
here?
where is he even
Yeah.
in the first place? I think we need to figure
That's
that
a
out.
rough
kind of where
assignment
he's
for
at.
you,
He
though.
pulled out of that fight, and we haven't really heard much from him. And honestly, I think the guy is super talented. I do think that he's done so much to merit a title shot, but if you just do this and then other guys can do more. So I think he deserves it, but other guys have simply surpassed him. But yeah, great
I don't
question.
think he's fighting for the title next. Movsar needs to win one. Maybe Movsar and Yusuf. So,
But we talked about Zalal making the belt gesture and whether or not he deserves it. It kind of doesn't matter. You have to do that as a fighter. You have to put yourself out there, or people are not going to talk about you. We're not going to talk about you on this show. Evloev needs to do something. He's got to put something out there and remind us that he's there. Otherwise, guys are just going to pass him up like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And let's not forget Aljo's still floating out there. Aljamain Sterling, he wants to fight for the title. I don't know if he's still on the
Rodriguez claims he was promised a title shot for the win over Pitbull, but he's kind of disappeared. So yeah, this division's a little bit of a mess right now. These guys need to fight.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's move on. No disrespect to Josh Emmett. He's 40. I don't know who his next opponent will be. I'm sure they'll give him a tough guy. He can still crack, but he just did not look good in this fight. But it was more because of Zalal. Joe Pyfer, your guys' thoughts here goes. This guy kind of got ran through a little bit in that first round by Abu Smagomedov. And I'm thinking, now I would never say fraud checked, but I know the haters because Pyfer brings it on them. We're getting ready to type that out. And then this dude comes in, a couple overhand rights, and the story changed in round 2.
Yeah, I thought we were watching like the best of 3 series because I felt like I saw 2 different fights. Round 1 was way different. Props to Pyfer for coming back and being able to get that done. To me, he's fun to watch. I don't have him pegged as a future champion. I also can't say that he can't get there. He improves a lot too. If you can get past the things he says, and a lot of people don't like that. When it comes down to what he does in the cage, which is what matters the most, he finds ways to get the job done, and I like watching him fight.
Danny Segura, were you impressed by his performance?
Very. I was actually not a Joe Pyfer hater, but I did have a lot of questions around him and his potential because of 2 things that I didn't like seeing, which was in the Jack Hermanson fight and then the Kelvin Gastelum fight. It kind of seemed to me that he kind of had this bully attitude about his fighting style, in the sense that if things were going well for him, he would grow and get even better. But if things weren't, he would kind of start breaking. And I saw that in the Jack Hermanson fight, and I definitely saw it in the Kelvin Gastelum fight when Kelvin Gastelum came back and won the 3rd. If that would have been a 5-round fight, I think he would have won the fight. So I was I've always been kind of hesitant about his prospect because of that, and always kind of thought that he had a poor response when the fight gets tough. And in this fight, clearly that first round, it got tough and he was able to bounce back. So actually, I very much like this performance. It showed that, he's able to deal with adversity, something that I've kind of had doubts on previous outings.
Danny, what did you think of George's GSP impression, though? It was kind of 50% GSP, 50% Yogi Bear, right?
Yeah. And then
hey, boo-boo.
and then he almost got starfish. We saw for a second there. He got starfish as well. And was
I started halfway. All right, Mike, again, you were there at the T-Mobile. So give us your reaction. Nice comeback win for Joe Pyfer. And then how did it register with the crowd? Well, the reason I keep asking that, UFC needs stars. Pyfer hasn't really accomplished much at the top, right? But somehow he's making waves in that 15 to 10 range right now. So how was this one?
Yeah, it was a solid win. As far as Joe Pyfer being a star or anything like that, he's one of those guys that I think you're clearly going to feel one way or another about him. There doesn't seem to be much in between ground when it comes to his fan base. They either find him extremely arrogant and annoying, or you just like his whole Joe Pyfer element. So I don't know. This was a good win. Like, anyone who is on the rise at middleweight has my attention a little bit because this division, it's still a lot of the same names, even occupying the top a little bit. We've seen some turnover now, but you still have like Israel Adesanya in the top 5, things like that. So we'll see where he can go, but I do think there is limitations on his ceiling.
Who would you give him next, by the way? I was thinking maybe Shabazian from the same card.
Yeah, Edmund's been on a nice run. I mean, anyone there, you could do like a Roman Dolidze, Marvin Vittori, something like that.
Okay. Shout out to Quay Stefan, Julian Campbell in the chat room. Great stuff. Again, we're got a lot to cover here, so just some shout outs today, maybe a question or two at the end. We'll see what we can do. Guys, it was a great card. Give me one quick highlight as we start to wrap up UFC 320 goes. Who else stood out for you?
You just threw the name out, Edmund Shabazian. It's a nice little streak that he's on. He's got to take that next step. Maybe a guy like Joe Pyfer is that next step, but I enjoy watching him fight.
Danny Segura, who impressed you at UFC 320?
Man, it's got to be a Teba Vega Gutierrez. That guy, I saw him fight in Mexico City, and since I've always been like, dude, this guy has so much potential. He's like the Francis Ngannou of middleweight, and I know his opponent wasn't necessarily like UFC caliber, took the fight on short notice, and it kind of looked that way. But still, I think this guy's probably the hardest hitting 85er, and I'm excited to see where he can go.
Yeah, I liked Coach Mark Montoya's chat that he had with Chris Gutierrez between rounds 2 and 3. Gutierrez came out and won round 3. In fact, early on, he really exploded on Farid Basharat. Kind of when Montoya was trying to get out of him in the first 10 minutes. But man, sometimes as a coach, you just gotta be that mean to your fighter and tell him, basically you're gonna fuck the whole night up if you don't go out there and do something. You gotta do something. You gotta knock this guy out. And then you could hear him as he heard him. You gotta finish this guy. I really love that coach, and I love his mentality. Mike, did you have a highlight for us from this card as well, or?
I think what Nathaniel Winter said there, I guess it's more of a low light, but just the Patchy Mix UFC experience has not been what I thought it was going to be. I don't think any of us thought that was the case. I mean, this guy, he at least left the wonderment of maybe is he the best bantamweight in the world, the way he was doing things over there in Bellator and PFL, and geez, 0-2 now in the UFC. Not to act like that's a death nail on the career. We're sitting here talking about Merab Dvalishvili. He lost his first 2 UFC fights, so it can be done. But just for what we've seen out there, it's kind of shocking.
Ricky Simone and goddamn, I can't remember who the other guy that Dvalishvili lost to. Anybody remember? I know one of them was Simone.
Too early, George.
All right, too early. Let's move on, guys. Look, if we have time, we'll come back to it. It was a 10 in my book. It was a 9 going in. It was a 10 coming out. PFL Championship Series in Dubai. So some other fights took place this weekend. Early Friday morning here in Las Vegas, afternoon on the East Coast. Paul Hughes pushed Usman Nurmagomedov in the first fight, so much so that he had this confidence, like, I'm going to get him in the second one. However, Usman learned from that and also got better in between fights, even though he didn't take another opponent like Paul Hughes did.
Yeah, if you were going to catch him, it was probably that first fight. These guys are always going to improve like that. Nurmi made some really good improvements, and you have to respect them. But I feel bad for Paul Hughes because it's 2 losses to the same guy, and some viewers might look at him and go, well, maybe he doesn't have what it takes. I actually feel like he's a really good fighter. He just ran into a freight train 2 times. But hopefully he can turn things around. I mean, I don't think he'll see this matchup for a long time, but I think he can be one of those guys that the PFL needs, somebody to kind of add a little bit of spice every time we're looking up these cards, somebody that matters. I think Paul Hughes is that guy.
What's next for Usman or Magomedov, Mike? He said Alfie Davis, and PFL doesn't have that depth like the UFC does, but is that basically the fight to make?
I mean, if there's any structure to what PFL is trying to do, it would be, right? Like he won his thing. He did what he needed to do. There's an element there. Like Usman or Magomedov and Gadzi Rabadonov have been like almost best friends since they were little kids. So there's a revenge angle there with Alfie Davis. So sure, you could do this Paul Hughes fight again. I don't think they're going to because, it just doesn't work that way, I feel like. Yeah. But if you want to go back to that at some point, I guess so. But yeah, we're now in the interesting space for Usman Nurmagomedov because he's clearly really good. I'd love to see him fight against UFC level guys, but he's locked down there for a bit. So we'll see. We'll see how high he racks up this undefeated record.
Mid Merlin, big shout out to you in the chat room. GD Cooking says it was against Frankie Saenz. Joseph Bosa beat you to it, but I gave Joseph a shout out earlier. Yeah, that's right. It was Frankie Saenz and Ricky Simone. Let's talk about Corey Sandhagen back to goes against Duvlay. Yags D Shamirodov. Great first round for D Yags, not D Bags, D Yags, and he heavy-handed, and I thought, oh man, Miller or Corey Anderson he's having flashbacks to that Grand Prix, when he was up on the no contest fight, and then he came back and lost. But what were your thoughts on his comeback?
Dude, I thought he was cooked early on in that fight. You could tell that overhand right just was getting closer and closer and closer, and Corey wasn't really reacting well to it. But as the fight went on, he did Corey. That's what he does. He puts pressure on people, and he can go all the way till the end with that. So props for him for weathering that storm and turning things around. But I actually thought he was going to be done maybe round 2 at the end of round 1, something like that.
So like I told Mike, do we just grab the tournament winner, which is Shoeface, ACJ, Antonio Carlos Jr., and just bring him over and fight Corey Anderson? I mean, or is there another name out there that you can think of that would make sense? Again, not much depth here.
It wouldn't make sense unless we did that. I think that's what has to happen. Why else are we doing these things, right?
Well, the weird thing is Shoeface goes, I kind of like a lot of fights in 1 year, and other fighters are like, man, I'll do it once, but I don't want to do it again. But I think they should do that too. Spinning back elbow time. Seems like we do this every week. Danny, Sergio Pettis was down in the fight, and he came back and beat Magomedov right in front of Habib too. He did that spinning elbow, and then the follow-up too. Who's he think he is? Dan Henderson? He did everything but kiss the fist and throw an unnecessary follow-up. But your thoughts on young Serge?
Yeah, that extra shot didn't seem necessary, but great knockout. I would say one of the best finishes probably of his career. I know he has a similar one against Kyoji Horiguchi, which was a big one as well. But he's looked great, 2-fight winning streak. Curious to see how this sort of bantamweight division shapes up, because when PFL absorbed it from Bellator, it was one of the best things that Bellator had going for them. 135 pounds, obviously, since like Patchy Mix left, and it's changed a little bit, but still you got names like Sergio Pettis thriving and making interesting headlines. So shouts out to Sergio. That was a very, very nice knockout.
Is that the best elbow you've seen this year? And that's a tough question because there's been a lot of them, man. That's what Fada said on the previous show with Dan Tom.
I really liked Lerone Murphy's. I really did. I think that one has it. It was just so crisp, so clean. And the way Pico fell as well. I think that's the best one so far, but all of them have been great.
Yeah. All right. We had some other news this past week as well. Some big names were booked, and it cleared things up in a couple divisions. So the UFC is going to Qatar on November 22nd. And their headline bout is Arman Sarukian against Dan Hooker. The co-main event is Ian Machado Gary against Bilal Muhammad. So what do we know? We take Sarukian out of the Ilia Topuria sweepstakes. Mike Bond, is this the right call? And what does that leave us with? It appears to me Gaethje or Pimlet are the front runners here for that assignment.
Yeah, that's just by process of elimination. But Dana White doing something very rare too, and saying yes when he was asked if Sarukian versus Hooker is the #1 contender fight. We'll see if they stand behind that when things evolve here. But it's always kind of been, in my opinion, the 3-horse race, and Sarukian was in there for that title shot, but you always just felt like he was at the bottom of that group just because of everything that's happened, the time off. He needed to get a fight and a win to get back in the UFC's good graces. And if you're looking at any of the matchups, like this is probably the best for him in terms of like these top guys out there. So this is a chance for him to go out there and make a big statement. And, ditto for Dan Hooker, who has been looking for these type of opportunities for a long time. Health has got in his way and his own, issues, but this is a very important fight. I mean, I did a podcast last week with Dustin Poirier talking about how there was nothing going on at lightweight and we were just waiting for fights to be made. Seems like we're finally getting some motion now, and we will see what they do. I fully expect Ilia Topuria to be the main event of the first Paramount card in January. And who is it going to be? Is it going to be Paddy Pimblett or the Justin Gaethje, who's threatening retirement if he doesn't get it. So
Who would you say deserves it more?
I mean, no one deserves is such a funny word to use in the sport now. I don't really think either of them deserve it per se, like, you know, in terms of who they're coming off wins over, like Michael Chandler on a losing skid, you know, not the greatest thing ever, and, you know, Fiziev on short notice. You know, I do think it'll be Patty, though, just given the opportunity, the platform. That's the fight that you sell the most for Paramount. So
okay. And Danny, what were your thoughts on that main event? And like I say, it cleared a few things up here. You know, Sarukian's obviously not fighting Ilia Topuria.
I like it. I think it's a good fight. I did think that out of all the contenders, the more deserving one was Arman Sarukian, but at the same time, like, he's definitely not the most exciting fight in terms of build up and all that. And, you know, he did have a fuck up, right, trying to get that fight with Islam Makhachev and pulling out a day prior. I know people feel differently about that, but still, it did leave the UFC in a tough situation, and we know how the promotion works. So all in all, I think this should be a win for Sarukian. So expect Sarukian to be challenging for the belt in the near future. So yeah, I think that the matchup is fine. I do wonder, though, now that we have sort of you know, a horse eliminated from that race, who's it going to be? I think that's sort of the bigger conversation here. That's going to be an interesting decision for the UFC to make.
So let me ask you this: if you could reshuffle the deck, who would you have put versus Hooker if you gave Sarukian to Ilia?
Gaethje.
Probably Gaethje. Yeah, that'd be the more fun fight.
Mm-hmm. All right. And Goes, you want to chime in here on the main event? I mean, it's booked, it's ready to go. Can't wait for the matchup. Maybe we still have time for that. Go ahead and chime in on that, and then lead into Ian Machado Gary versus Bilal Muhammad, which bummed me out because I really want to see Muhammad and Kamaru Usman.
Yeah, I mean, not much different than what they said. I feel like Sarukian was the guy that deserved it. I think he's the toughest matchup, but I understand why they're going in this direction. As far as Machado Gary and Muhammad, how do you not get excited over that? I get that, but Kamaru Usman was right there. All that buildup, everything that's been going on, it feels like it promotes itself. Kind of weird that they didn't go that route, but at the end of the day, we're left with a good matchup that's going to be fun outside the cage and inside the cage.
All right, back to Mike. We just discussed how that helped shape out lightweight a little bit. We're down to Pimlet and Gaethje. What are we down to for the winner of JDM and Islam Makhachev, which is taking place in November, UFC 322? Is Kamaru almost on ice for the winner there, or could this fight impact that fight, or do we have an update on Shavkat Rakhmonov? I mean, I don't know what's up here.
Yeah, I'll just Shavkat first because there was some fake news going around that he had like re-injured his knee or something. That's not true. I think he might actually get a fight before the end of the year. Not ready to record anything, but I think he'll be back sooner than later. But yeah, it does feel like Usman is maybe being held for the winner of this, which I don't love, but I mean, especially if Islam wins the whole current pound for pound versus former, all that type of stuff that Usman was trying to pitch this fight with. And I'd be quite captivated to just see Islam fight as many of these guys at welterweight as possible, just because it's all a fresh batch for him. So we'll see how the fight goes. If Jack Della Maddalena wins, I really don't know what direction they go. I could see him. It sounds like they might be going to Sydney in February. So it could be like, hey, who's ready to challenge for the title then? Who wants to go to Australia and take a massive tax hit on a title fight? Pack your bags, baby.
Oh, massive tax. All right. Real quick, guys. You guys did great the first time. Give me a name. Sarukian or Hooker? Danny. Early lean. You can change it later. You like Sarukian Goes?
Sarukian.
Dan. Or Mike.
Yeah, and sweep.
Man, I like Hooker.
Really?
Yamrod is a wrestler as well, and he toughed that out, man. I think that's why he said, sign me up for the next one, which he very could have well told the UFC, you already gave me a striker. A grappler. Give me someone I can shine on. And but I think he's got that toughness. That's my early lean, guys. And
George, don't lie. Gun to the head, you're saying Sarukian.
Yeah.
Gun to the head, yeah, but still. I don't know. I like what Hooker was able to do. He trained really hard. he was able to get up, you know, and make something out of it. And he actually broke the guy that usually breaks people. Anyway, we'll see. Kyoji Horiguchi is back, guys. I think he was 7-1 or something like that. His first run in the UFC as a flyweight. He only lost to DJ, the greatest of all time at flyweight, possibly in any weight class. Then he went off and won some titles in Japan. He won one at Bellator, and he's back against Tagir Ulanbekov on this same card in Qatar. Your thoughts here, Danny, and who do you like?
Finally, it just feels like it's been such a long time since we heard of the signing to now his return. So I just hope, knock on wood right here, that this fight remains intact and that it actually happens, because I do feel like Kyoji active. He's a very interesting addition to the flyweight division, and you know, could he be champion? I don't know. I mean, I think it'd certainly be interesting. I do wonder how the dynamic would work, because I know he's a staple at American Top Team, and so is Pantoja. So that'd be kind of interesting. But man, I think he's a super talented fighter and very much needed at flyweight. So happy for this fight, and this I like that they're giving him a tough fight straight away, as it should be.
Mm-hmm. Goes, what are your thoughts on having the Japanese fighter back, and can he be a champ again?
It's so
tough. Not in the UFC, but just the champ again because of the other titles that he's held.
Yeah. Look, I'm a huge Horiguchi mark, so I love it. I love that he's back, and I think he has an interesting style, and yeah, I think he could.
Mm-hmm. Danny, PFL gets a couple flyweights going the other way. Ariane Da Silva and Vivian Araujo got signed. I don't know if that's just like chum for the shark that is Dakota Ditchova, or do you like these signings? That's their division for the females, the flyweight, so they signed a couple names.
Yeah, I think anytime the the PFL gets recognizable names from the UFC, people that have been in the rankings, that I think Viviana Araujo even at some point headlined a UFC event. I might be wrong about that. It's good. It's good news for the PFL. They need names, and these are recognizable names. I really do like the Ariane Lipski or Da Silva signing, because I always thought, like, win or lose, she always put on exciting fights, and you know that's sometimes hard to find, like violence in women's MMA a little bit. So yeah, let's see what they do. I don't think neither of them beat Dakota, but maybe they can build an interesting case if they get some wins, and sure, not a bad signing.
The UFC looks like they invested nicely in this card in Qatar. Is there any other highlights or fights that you want to highlight? Goes back to you.
Actually, what I want to highlight is BKFC, if we have that moment. Look,
go ahead,
dude. Because we're running out of time here. I don't know who on this panel caught that, but that was a lot of fun, man. A lot of great fights, and boy, is BKFC just the place for Mike Perry. That guy was born to do this type of thing, and I love watching these fights. So if you haven't gotten a chance to see it, go back and watch that card. There was some nasty hits in that.
All right. Well, look, we're there. So tell me something. You know, Perry, he's like 6-0 over there, right? And McGregor's still kind of like batting him around, playing around, messing with him. Perry had a couple pushbacks, but the ultimate pushback is winning, obviously, and competing and winning, something McGregor can't do right now or chooses not to do. I don't know. What were your thoughts on that little side plot? Do you want to see them at some point? And just Perry, man, like he's starting to creep up on Luis Palomino. Maybe it was their greatest signing ever.
Yeah, he needs to stop getting pushed around by Conor. I get it. I get the position that Conor's in, but you have a mouth, and I think you can fire back. And he's starting to do that a little bit more. But man, there are a lot of kill shots that you could send towards Conor McGregor. I'm surprised that he puts himself out there that much. He gets slapped around from time to time, but dude, that guy's just made for that. Yeah, I mean, Luis Palomino's got to watch out, and he's got a big fight coming up too.
Yeah, that was a great fight, man. And Christine Ferreira, we have time to talk about that. She up her opponent. Yeah, the beak just went from one end to the end. Mike, I know we have a little bit of a sketchy internet Wi-Fi situation where you're at, but are you with us here? I'd love to hear your thoughts if you have some on Perry versus Jeremy Stevens for the King of Violence title.
Yeah, I didn't get to see the entire fight like as much as I want to because obviously it was going on during the UFC event. Our good friend Oscar Willis from the Mac Life had it open on his computer, so I was checking every now and then. But oh my god, from what I saw, how freaking tough is Jeremy Stevens, dude? Like that guy was taking all sorts of damage there, some huge shots. He's a true fighter, and he was at a serious size and power deficit there. So respect to him. You just wonder what BKFC is going to dig up next for Mike Perry because, these ex-UFC champions at the tail end of their career, I don't know what the appeal of that is going forward or how many potential options there are for him. And then, Jeremy Stevens, like, for all his respect, he is still the guy with the most losses in UFC history. So it is what it is. But before we wrap this, George, I don't know if you saw this news. President Trump announcing that the White House card will take place June 14th on his 80th birthday, which is a Sunday, interestingly enough.
That's on the White House card? I thought it was a celebration of the United States 250 years on July 4th.
So I think they just like Washington and everything on actual July 4th weekend would just be too chaotic to try to pull off. So they said it was going to be in June, but it's still quote unquote celebration of, America's independence, all that stuff. But yeah, Trump announced that. Sounds like it'll be a Sunday, June 14th.
Yeah, I love a Sunday card. So there's that.
No, yeah. Okay. Well, if that's the date, that's the date. The UFC says they're building the greatest card ever. Danny, you are a fan of BKFC, and what did you think of Christine Pereira over Jessica Borga?
I didn't actually watch that fight. I saw highlights of Perry and Stevens. And
did you see the shot on social media?
I did not.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Ghost, you want to chime in on this one? That was a shot, dude.
Dude, her nose.
You could hear it
looking in the opposite direction. I couldn't believe it. Like that girl really tests herself in every fight. She's afraid of no one, man.
She is a gangster, Christine Feria. Feria, I think is her name. Yeah, that was something else. All right. So lastly here, UFC is in Rio de Janeiro. Charlie Olives has got Mateus Gamrot, who I mentioned earlier. What's at stake here, Danny?
Oof. I don't know. I kind of do feel like Charles Oliveira is now kind of checked out of the title picture in my opinion. There's just so many fresh faces or faces that have yet to compete, and with Ilia Topuria and that knockout, like it just seems like he won't really, it's gonna be tough to get back to for Gamrot because he's never fought for the belt. I do feel like maybe not a title shot it's at stake, but certainly like title contention. He's kind of been forgotten about because he's never really had the opportunity to fight like one of the big former champions, right? The guys in the top 5, and he's finally getting this opportunity now, and it's coming on short notice too. He wasn't even supposed to be here. So I feel like if he does get a good win here, maybe we do put him in talks with having bigger matchups that could lead to a title shot. But for Charlie Olives, yeah, I don't know. I think probably his title days are done. But yeah, that's kind of what I see as
who wins the fight, Danny?
Who wins the fight?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Gamrot, but Oliveira in Brazil, you never know, man. He can always summon some sort of Brazilian energy and the Uvai Moreira thing, and then next thing you know, he's got a sub and he's getting his hand raised.
Montel Jackson doesn't get a lot of love. Could this be it if he gets over on Figgy, Mike Mon?
Sure. I mean, like we said, Merab Dvalishvili needs people to fight if he's going to continue the schedule. So yeah, it could be a title shot before he does that. Montel Jackson's being underrated for a while here, so good to see him get this type of opportunity. And we'll see if Figgy has much life left after that Corey Sandhagen loss. And yeah, just wanted to note to Danny's point on Charles Oliveira. I think 17-0 in his MMA career in Brazil, 7-0 in the UFC, 6 bonuses. So
there you
Gamrot's got his handfuls with this one.
That is a stat right there. All right. Goes, I'd normally go to you now, but I'm going to penalize you for pivoting to BKFC. You threw me off my game a little. And we're a little short on time. Plus, I like hearing Danny say Joel Alvarez, who's now debuting at 170, Danny Segura. Is that maybe his home now going forward, or is he just doing the
I love it. I love it. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I interviewed Joel Alvarez for I interviewed Joel Alvarez a few weeks ago or several weeks ago, and he was saying that like 155, he's absolutely done with that weight class. Like it literally would just take him 10 weeks to make the weight. Like he needed 10 weeks in advancement in order so he could start gradually dropping the weight. And yeah, I've always been like, dude, this guy has the frame of a welterweight. I think he would do fantastic at welterweight, better matchups for him. So finally he's moving up, and you know, I think he's going to be more active now that he doesn't have that crazy weight cut. And I think this is a great debut. Vicente Luque, obviously a former top 5 fighter in the division. This is his time to shine, and I think the world of Joel Alvarez. I think he has a ton of potential and is extremely, extremely underrated.
Danny is referencing Hablemos MMA, his Spanish-speaking channel. If you want to consume MMA in Spanish, check out Hablemos MMA. He catches up with a lot of the stars in mixed martial arts who speak Spanish. You guys did an outstanding job. I want to give a shout out to Mike Bond. He's got the bonfire. His latest guest was Dustin Poirier, if I'm not mistaken. He catches up with the top names in the game as well. That was launched in the last year or so. So shout out to him. Goes and I do MMA Junkie Radio every Monday and Thursday. You can find it on the site or your favorite podcast platform. And to take the baton from Poatan, our thoughts and prayers from MMA Junkie to John Jones and his family for the loss of his brother Arthur Jones, a Super Bowl winner who was also present and always backing his brother. Him and his other brother Chandler Jones would always be there, a big presence during John Jones's heyday. So again, our deepest condolences to the Jones family. Now with that, we're out of here, but another stream is starting because right now the Dana White Contender Series weigh-ins are about to begin. They do it quick, so head on over there. And thank you all for supporting us here on Spinning Back Clique. On your way out, hit that like button. We'll see you next week. Go out and be a champion.